Let's talk about something very important, about Nazism and Zionism, and why you are here for it. What were concentration camps? They were places where everything was controlled, including the people themselves. Each person was given a number so that they could be managed easily, just like running a factory. And humans turned into what? They became something to use, either cheap labor that would work until death, or materials to benefit from. Imagine that. Bones were turned into fertilizer, hair was turned into brushes, and fat into soap. The idea was complete utilization of everything. And Zionism? Exactly the same story. Look at Palestine, they said, a land without a people, meaning they ignored the people already living there. Palestine became just land to take and exploit. And the Palestinians? They became people who could be removed, relocated, or eliminated. And the Jews themselves were treated as human material Europe wanted to get rid of, so they transferred them. The whole idea, everything is movable and usable, nothing is sacred. There is no respect for the sanctity of human beings. If we look at three examples from around the world, in Singapore, humans became production units. Their only concern was to produce, consume, and contribute to the economy. In Thailand, humans, especially women, were used in the sex trade to attract tourists and boost national income. In Nazism and Zionism, humans were used in labor and extermination camps or expelled from their lands. The idea is the same in all cases. Humans turned into something to use, not beings with dignity and value. And something important to notice, how they used nice words to hide the horrifying truth. The Nazis didn't say extermination, they said final solution. Gas chambers were called showers for public health. Zionists didn't say occupation, they said land cultivation. In Singapore, they don't say exploitation, they say improving living standards. In Thailand, prostitution became sex worker, a member of the working class. And later, she could become a national heroine because she generates national income. See the wordplay? To make us forget that a human being is in front of us. The Nazis divided humans into three types. First, the German Aryan race, supposed to rule the world. Second, Western European peoples, middle tier, could be dealt with. Third, Slavs, Gypsies, Jews, dwarfs, in their view, inferior races, useful only to exploit. On July 14, 1933, they passed a law called the Sterilization Law. This law prevented certain people from reproducing: the disabled, mentally ill, epileptics, deaf, blind with hereditary blindness, deformed, and addicts. And indeed, 400,000 German citizens were sterilized. In 1935, they passed a law forbidding sexual relations between Jews and Germans to preserve racial purity. In 1939, they declared that every citizen must be in good health. They required every doctor or midwife to report any child born with a disability. And the objective killings began, or as they called it, scientific, of those who were incurable. Documents show they killed 70,000 disabled and helpless people, people who eat and do not produce, seeing them as a burden on the economy. And they said that killing them saved 239 million kilos of jam per year. They calculated it with numbers. They formed scientific committees on hereditary diseases and advised killing deformed children. They would take them to hospitals, place them in special wards, and then kill them in gas chambers disguised as showers, and then burn the bodies. The frightening thing, they applied the same standard to wounded German soldiers whose treatment would be expensive, and then to prisoners of war. And the Jews were classified as sick due to their racial impurity. From here, they decided they must be eliminated like useless German elements. They expanded the killing program to include all criminals, Jewish and non-Jewish, because they believed Jews had a natural criminal tendency due to their genes. And among the worst things that happened, scientific experiments on humans. The Nazis would select certain people for experiments. And this was very easy for them because they did not see humans in front of them. They saw experimental material. There was a doctor named Hans Eisler in Buchenwald camp who performed surgeries without anesthesia, just to see the results. God damn it. They would shoot people to test bullet effectiveness in warfare. They would place people in rooms without air to see how long a human could survive at high altitudes or without oxygen. They would reduce oxygen gradually, and the victims would suffer until their lungs exploded or they went mad from pain. Another Nazi doctor named Roscher conducted freezing experiments. He would put people in extreme cold until they died to learn how long pilots could survive if they fell into freezing waters. He would drown victims in icy water or leave them naked outside in freezing nights. In the winter of 1943, during an extreme cold wave, he left some prisoners naked in the cold for 14 hours. Their extremities froze, and their core body temperature dropped dramatically. He observed everything: pulse, breathing, temperature, blood pressure. He conducted over 400 experiments on 300 victims. About 90 died from the treatment itself. Many went insane. The rest? He killed them so they wouldn't be witnesses later. Roscher discovered new scientific truths, and unfortunately to this day, universities in Germany and the US still benefit from these results. They injected people with poison, air, or bacteria. They implanted gangrene into wounds. They performed bone grafting and sterilization experiments. And there was a famous Nazi doctor named Mengele who was interested in twins. He would select twins from camps and perform unique experiments that no other scientist could do. He would separate the twins into two rooms, then torture one to observe the effect on the other. Sometimes he would kill one of them to study the impact on the other. As one survivor said, Nazi Germany was the only place in the world where scientists could study two twin bodies killed at the same moment. To this day, Mengele's studies on twins are considered among the most important in the field. The question now, is it ethical to benefit from knowledge obtained through such diabolical means? Other scientists conducted experiments on the victims' brains. There was a doctor named Berger who selected 79 Jews, 2 Poles, 4 Asians, and 30 Jewish women, sent them to Auschwitz, and killed them so another doctor named Hurt could create a complete collection of Jewish skeletons for scientific purposes. Berger himself was interested in Asians and their skulls, trying to build his own collection. And a professor named Hallerford, upon learning that many people would be killed, told the officials simply, "Just give us their brains to use. The higher the number, the better." And indeed, they were given acids in jars to preserve the brains. He was very pleased to find beautifully deformed brains of the disabled and brains of children with diseases and deformities. One of the strangest stories, a Nazi professor named Klaus was discovered living with his Jewish secretary, and when he defended himself, what did he say? He said he had a problem studying Jews because he couldn't live among them, so he needed evidence or a representative sample to study them up close. He said she was nothing more than a study subject to him, and he observed how she eats, how she talks to people, how she constructs sentences. The Nazis had an amazing flexibility when it came to self-interest. For example, the Japanese, who according to Nazi racial theory were considered a lower yellow race, when Germany allied with Japan, they reclassified them as Eastern Aryans. Documents emerged showing that thousands of German soldiers were Jewish or half-Jewish, even though the law prohibited anyone of Jewish origin from becoming an officer. They found 77 high-ranking officers of Jewish origin or married to Jewish women. Yet Hitler signed certificates declaring them of German blood. Among them was Eberhard Milch, who was half Jewish but still became deputy to Hermann Göring, commander of the German Air Force. The Nazi leadership even awarded the highest German military medal to soldiers who had been expelled from the army due to Jewish origin and then reinstated. There is a story that a high-ranking German officer visited his father in a concentration camp, wearing all the medals and decorations he had been given by the Nazi regime, the same regime exterminating Jews, including his own father. The irony here? When the Nazis found an opportunity to benefit from Jews, they didn't hesitate to adjust even their racial doctrines. But alongside people they used in experiments, there were others, from the Nazis' perspective, useless. They were exterminated quickly by mobile units following German armies. The method was fast and cheap. They would dig mass graves, and the victims themselves would dig them with their own hands, then be thrown in. Or they used trucks with mobile gas chambers to kill victims without transporting them to camps. In this way, they eliminated wounded German soldiers whose treatment was expensive, large numbers of Polish intellectuals, and the excess Russian population. And even after the decision to kill and exterminate, the Nazis were keen on complete utilization. They stripped the victims of anything useful, even gold fillings in their teeth. And of course, this contributed to improving the German economy. Human hair was used to stuff mattresses, reportedly comfortable and cheap. Human ashes were used as fertilizer and insulating material. Human bones were ground and used for industrial purposes. It is even said that luxury soaps were made from human fat, although some recent studies cast doubt on this. The economic efficiency of extermination camps was extremely high, and control was total. And this brings us to a very important question. Who is morally responsible for these crimes? Some say the Nazi employee who participated in the exterminations was merely an executive officer, a servant of orders, implementing orders from above without questioning their moral content. But others say, no, a human is a free and responsible being and must bear full moral responsibility for his actions, and must stand against the extermination of the weak, even if it serves the common good or the state and homeland. Meaning the individual has loyalty to higher ethical and human values above loyalty to the state or job efficiency. Now let's talk about something important: how the Zionists exploited Nazi extermination for their benefit. The first thing they did, they tried to impose only one meaning, that this was a German crime against the Jews and nothing else. They completely ignored that the Nazis killed millions of Poles, Gypsies, Slavs, and many others. Then they launched a massive media campaign, films, studies, artworks. They brought the topic into dozens of American universities, built museums and memorials in Washington and New York. All this to cement one idea: the extermination happened to Jews only. Most importantly, they used this to justify atrocities against the Palestinians. Anyone criticizing them would be told, "We are victims of the extermination." They also collected massive reparations from Germany, $70 billion in 35 years. The money went to Israel, bought weapons and settlements. In other words, they turned tragedy into material gain. And it's funny that Israel deals normally with countries that helped the Nazis. Like apartheid South Africa, they even welcomed its former Prime Minister Forster, who was in a pro-Nazi movement, and allowed him to lay a wreath on extermination memorials. So the matter is about interests. When there is interest, they even deal with former Nazis. The Zionists tried to monopolize the role of victim. They refuse any comparison between what happened to the Jews and what happened to other peoples, or even what is happening to Palestinians today. But the truth, Nazi extermination was not aimed at Jews alone. War victims reached 35 to 50 million humans. Auschwitz itself targeted Poles, socialists, Jews, and Gypsies. And many helped the Jews, Muslims in Bulgaria, Denmark, Finland, Romania, and Italy. Sultan Mohammed V in Morocco refused to apply Nazi laws to Moroccan Jews. The Soviet Union moved hundreds of thousands of Jews away from occupied areas. But Zionist histories ignore all of that. In recent years, some researchers, some specialists, began questioning some official numbers. Western and Zionist media attacked them fiercely. And strangely, some of these studies were scientific, and even Israeli scientists questioned some figures. But instead of scientific debate, France issued a law forbidding skepticism, meaning it is prohibited even to discuss the topic. The question, why is the West so obsessed with the official narrative and rejects any discussion? First, if they admit the extermination was not only a German crime, it would expose the crimes of Western civilization against Native Americans in the Americas, in Africa, and everywhere. Second, if they admit it, they would have to admit what happened to the Palestinians is a crime, because the whole West helped in their displacement. Third, extermination has become a kind of sacred in the West. After losing their religious faith, they found in it a material sacred that makes them feel guilt, but without preventing them from committing new crimes. Nazi extermination is a real, horrible crime, but exploiting it in this way, monopolizing the victim role, using it to justify killing Palestinians and collecting billions, That is another injustice. The matter should be open to scientific discussion. Archives should be opened, and we should know the full truth, because the truth is always stronger than lies, no matter how hard we try to hide it.